This tintype photograph of three men dressed to play baseball dates to the 1870s. White and off-white stockings, dark-colored knee breeches, cuffed long-sleeve shirts, and caps perched at jaunty angles combine to project an air of confidence and capability. One wears a neckerchief. Another dangles a cheroot from the corner of his mouth. A third's face is marked by high, hollow cheeks and a long, aquiline nose. Is there any way of knowing who these men were? Let's find out. A tintype is a photograph produced on a thin sheet of metal. The process was fast, inexpensive, and saw widest use during the 1860s and 70s. The image you see is actually an inversion of the reality captured by the photographer on the day it was taken. What first attracted me to this image was the resemblance the player at right bears to Jim Devlin, a leading pitcher seen here with the Louisville Grays in 1876. A year later, Devlin would become baseball's bête noire, banished for selling games along with three Louisville teammates. Let's compare. The mustache, brow line, and slightly crooked nose all stand out as particularly similar. The player at left does seem to have a longer, fuller head of hair, but here's Devlin in 1877. The newspaper reproduced photograph is poor quality, but his receding hairline is evident compared to the photo at center, taken a year before. Could the photo at left be from earlier in Devlin's career? His first pro season was 1873. Playing as 11th man for his hometown Philadelphia White Stockings. Here's teammate Bob Addy, a talented, hard-hustling Canadian-born player who'd been playing ball in the US since 1866. Could the player at left be Bob? Let's take a closer look. Here's Addy with Rockford Forest City in 1869. In 1870, 70 again, 71, with Chicago in 1876, and Rockford once more from 1869. Is the man in this photograph the same as the others? If so, we could be looking at an as-yet unknown photograph of big-hearted, bow-legged, profane Bob Addy, a National Association star of first magnitude known for his diving slides and for being, in the words of Al Spalding, a celebrated baseball character. There's another reference to consider, this photograph of the Philadelphia White Stockings and Boston Red Stockings, which most agree dates to 1873. Here's Addy, who played for both teams that year, leaving Philadelphia in June only to sign with Boston later that summer. Note how Addy is standing, his legs crossed, and then compare with the photo at right. Now compare with this photo of Addy with Rockford in 1869. Addy was famously bow-legged. Could this have been his preferred pose for photographs? Let's shift focus momentarily to the 1873 White Stockings, whose uniforms were mouse-hued, with a white shirt, linen cap, and mid-tone pants tucked into white stockings. Here's a rendering by Craig Brown from the Threads of Our Game 19th Century Uniform database. While Philadelphia's players appear to be wearing their stockings tucked under their pants, the player at right has tucked his pants into his stockings, which corresponds to one newspaper description of Philadelphia's uniform at the time. It's hard to say conclusively that the player at right is wearing an 1873 White Stockings uniform, but the two are indeed quite similar. What is apparent is that the players left and center don't appear to be wearing the same Boston uniform Addy is seen wearing here, thus ruling out the likelihood that the photo of the three players is from 1873. So where does this leave us? The player at left may be Bob Addy, and the one at right may be Jim Devlin. Visual comparisons lend fairly strong support to this hypothesis. Both are wearing white or off-white stockings, but their uniforms aren't very uniform. Could this photo show Addy and Devlin posed together while engaged with different teams in some year after 1873? In 1874, Addy played for Hartford, but the uniforms worn by the players left and center don't really match this rendering. In 1875, Addy returned to Philadelphia to play for the White Stockings. They're reported to have worn pants of gray or dark lavender, a much closer match to the shade shown in the photograph. Here's Addy with teammates that season, including Joe Borden, then a 21-year-old amateur pitcher who, like Devlin, hailed from Philadelphia, but played under the pseudonym Josephus to keep his family from finding out. Let's compare two images of Borden and the player sitting at center. If the player at center is indeed Borden, shown here with Boston in 1876, we're looking at an 1875 photograph of the pitcher who, on July 28th of that year, authored professional baseball's first ever no-hitter, the only one in National Association history. A year later with Boston, Borden would be the winning pitcher in the National League's first ever game. Based on the evidence presented, I posit this photograph shows Bob Addy and Joe Borden as members of the 1875 Philadelphia White Stockings. It's also very possible that the player at right is Jim Devlin, who then would have been in his second season with the Chicago White Stockings, the victims of Borden's July 28th no-hitter. Is Devlin's uniform then a reflection of Chicago's kit from that year? Or did Devlin don some combination of his 1873 Philadelphia togs, in a nod to his and Borden's hometown? The intimate, unofficial nature of this photograph suggests another possibility, that the three players are wearing practice clothes or are only partially in uniform. However, the matching nature of Addy and Borden's ensemble provides a key clue to their co-affiliation, and ultimately, identities. Addy was well liked in Philadelphia, a hotbed of baseball talent that catapulted Devlin and Borden to national renown. Perhaps this photo was taken after Borden's spectacular no-hit performance. The veteran Addy and stalwart local boy Devlin posed on either side of the man of the hour. Over the next 2 years, Jim Devlin pitched nearly every game for the newly formed Louisville Grays, but clashes with management and the ensuing game-fixing scandal undermined any hopes of sustaining his 2-year reign as baseball's most dominant pitcher. Lauded as Josephus the Phenomenal, Joe Borden signed a 3-year contract with Boston for 1876, but by mid-season was struggling, and his contract eventually was bought out, Sporting Life noting, "His career went up like a rocket and came down like a stick." Addy played 2 more seasons, first with Chicago, then Cincinnati, before lighting out west to seek his fortune. This photo then offers a view of baseball on the verge of professional transformation, a possible last glimpse at the fleeting glories of the National Association before the founding of the National League.